he sang about sunshine, country roads, and the beauty of nature. But behind John Denver's soothing voice was a storm no one saw coming. His life was full of chart-topping hits, global fame, and public adoration. Fame couldn't save him. Love couldn't ground him. And in the end, one fatal mistake cost him everything. What really happened in that cockpit? Why did the world's most beloved folk singer fall so far? Stay with us, because the truth about John Denver isn't what you think. Born Henry John Deutschendorf Jr. on December 31, 1943, in Roswell, New Mexico, John came into a world of turbulence. His father, Captain Henry Dutch Deutschendorf, was a decorated Air Force pilot who broke speed records and entered the Air Force Hall of Fame. But the military life meant constant moves from Arizona to Alabama, then Texas. By the time John hit adolescence, he had no roots. That lifelong feeling of displacement would haunt both his lyrics and his relationships at age 11. While living in Tucson, Arizona, his grandmother gifted him a 1910 Gibson guitar. That single act changed everything. In music, John found belonging. He joined the Tucson Boys Chorus and began performing folk tunes, learning to harmonize and express what words couldn't. By the time he entered Texas Tech University, he already knew architecture wasn't his path. Music was his compass. Inspired by the grandeur of the Rocky Mountains, he changed his last name to Denver, nod to Colorado's capital and a symbolic rebirth. Moving to Los Angeles, he pursued his dream. In 1965, he got his first major break, replacing a singer in the Chad Mitchell Trio. That same year, he penned Leaving on a jet plane. When Peter, Paul, and Mary released it in 1969, it skyrocketed to no. 1. It was a turning point. Denver had found his voice, and the world was starting to listen. The 1970s were Denver's golden years, with hits like Take Me Home, Country Roads, Annie's song, Rocky Mountain High, Sunshine on My Shoulders, and Thank God I'm a Country Boy. Denver became a household name. His songs weren't just melodies, they were stories. They celebrated nature, love, and the deep longing for a place to call home. In 1971, his album Poems, Prayers, and Promises introduced Country Roads, which nearly failed due to early technical issues. But thanks to manager Jerry Weintraub, radio stations gave it a second chance. By August, it was No. 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and soon became an American anthem. In 2014, West Virginia even made it one of its official state songs. Denver followed, with Rocky Mountain High in 1972, inspired by a camping trip in Aspen, Colorado. The album soared to the top 10, and the song became so closely tied to Colorado's identity that it was named one of the state's official anthems in 2007. Denver was no longer just a musician. He was becoming a symbol of the American outdoors. Between 1974 and 1975, Denver had an unprecedented run of success. 4 songs reached No. 1 in just 18 months. Sunshine on My Shoulders, Annie's Song, Thank God I'm a Country Boy, and I'm Sorry. His albums Back Home Again, Wind Song, and John Denver's Greatest Hits sold millions. In fact, Greatest Hits became RCA Records' best-selling album ever, even outselling Elvis Presley. His success extended beyond music. In 1977, Denver starred in the hit film Oh God, showcased Denver's sincere charm and solidified his mainstream appeal. Critics were surprised this wasn't just a folk singer dabbling in acting. It worked. The movie earned over $50 million and received an Oscar nomination for its screenplay. Denver's style also stood out, with long blonde hair, wire glasses, and embroidered Western shirts made by designer Anna Zapp. He created a gentle, down-to-earth image. That image, combined with his soothing voice and activism, made him beloved across the globe, in places like Britain, Europe, and China. Behind the image was a storm. Denver's first marriage to Annie Martell, whom he wed in 1967, seemed idyllic. He wrote Annie's Song. For her, in just 10 minutes while riding a ski lift in Aspen, they adopted 2 children's Ackery, John and Anna Kate. John often said being their father was his proudest legacy. He even wrote A Baby Just Like You as a Christmas song for Zachary. But fame took its toll. As his career exploded, his marriage unraveled. Denver grew possessive and temperamental. In a shocking moment, after Annie cut down some trees on their property, he retaliated by sawing their bed in half with a chainsaw. His autobiography would later admit to violent behavior, affairs, and drug use including LSD, cocaine, and marijuana. In 1988, Denver married Cassandra Delaney, an actress from Australia. After a whirlwind romance, they had a daughter, Jessie Bell, but the relationship was troubled from the start. Cassandra later revealed a household marked by control, isolation, and fear. Staff described Denver as moody and volatile. Secretaries quit crying. He became known for emotional abuse and paranoia. The divorce, finalized in 1993, was bitter. Denver even sued her for $3.3 million, claiming public humiliation. By the mid-1980s, the world around John Denver had changed. Once a constant presence on radio stations and television screens, his gentle acoustic melodies began to feel out of place in a music industry increasingly driven by synth-pop, flashy visuals, and the rising dominance of MTV, despite releasing over 24 successful albums and holding a legacy that included 13 gold and 8 platinum records. RCA Records' longtime label decided it was time to move on. Denver had just completed his album One World, expecting it to be a renewal of their partnership. Instead, it became a goodbye. RCA dropped him, choosing to invest in trendier, younger acts. The rejection cut deep. After years of loyalty and record-breaking sales, Denver was left behind. He threw himself into environmental advocacy, founding the WinStar Foundation, which focused on conservation, sustainability, and education. Denver wasn't just singing about nature anymore. He was actively working to protect it. In 1985, Denver shocked many by appearing before the United States Congress during hearings about music censorship. Singer, he stood firmly against government efforts to label or censor music. His calm but powerful testimony reminded lawmakers that even gentle voices deserved to be heard freely. His song Rocky Mountain High had once been misinterpreted as a drug reference, but even as he advocated for freedom, Denver was losing his own. His love for flying, something he had shared with his Air Force father, had become a central passion. He logged over 2,700 hours in the air and earned ratings for nearly every class of aircraft, from gliders to private jets. But in the 1990s, his personal life spiraled. 2 DUI arrests raised serious concerns. The FAA, citing safety concerns, revoked his medical certificate, effectively grounding him unless he could prove sobriety and undergo a formal review. Denver, instead of cooperating, refused to sign certified FAA letters. This technicality kept his license in limbo, a loophole that allowed him to keep flying, though not legally. Eventually, in March 1997, he accepted the FAA's notice, which meant from that point forward, every flight he took was officially illegal. Just 7 months later, on October 12, 1997, tragedy struck. In Monterey, California, Denver took off in a newly purchased Rutan Longji Z, an experimental plane with major design modifications. He'd only owned the plane for a day and had minimal training on how to operate it. Critical controls, like the fuel selector valve, were located in awkward positions behind the pilot's seat. Even the fuel gauges required a mirror to read. Denver had been warned, but chose to fly anyway. That day, he ran 1 tank dry during a series of takeoffs and landings. As the engine sputtered, he twisted to switch tanks, accidentally hitting the rudder. Pacific Ocean. The NTSB investigation concluded that the crash was preventable. Denver lacked familiarity with the plane, had low fuel, and had no proper support or safeguards. His death stunned the world. To many, Denver had been a symbol of peace, hope, and natural harmony. But his legacy became more complicated. His music had always felt pure, but behind the lyrics were scars. A broken marriage, emotional wounds, struggles with substance abuse, and legal troubles. Yet it's perhaps that very duality, the gentle artist with a restless spirit, that made him real. Denver's music still echoes across West Virginia's country roads, through the Colorado Rockies, and in the hearts of those who remember his voice as the soundtrack to their youth. Because in every song, every performance, John Denver was searching, not just for home, but for peace, for meaning, for forgiveness. And in that search, we find the humanity that keeps his memory alive. If John Denver's story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. His life was a mix of beauty and heartbreaking. There's more where that came from. Stay tuned for more untold stories behind the legends you thought you knew. Thanks for watching.